So the headline on this Friday afternoon is the Houston Rodeo wants to drag a rape victim into court because they want to hide their charity records. This is disgusting. This is outrageous. The rodeo should be ashamed of themselves, and all the very high prominent Houstonians that serve on the board of the rodeo should call the administrative office and say, what are you doing? So, quick history. There was a rape lawsuit filed in 2017 by a young woman who was brutally sexually assaulted during a Los Vaqueros trail ride warm-up event. She sued Los Vaqueros, she sued the rodeo. The Pinkerton law firm, Chad Pinkerton, Ben Roberts, asked my firm to help them find some potential eyewitnesses to the rape case. Unrelated to that, we filed some requests for records from the rodeo. Originally, we got curious because when we asked the police department and the sheriff's office for any reports of crime during the rodeo, they said there weren't any, and that didn't seem to make sense, so we asked the rodeo for financial records. We also asked them for records of any settlements for sexual assault or sexual harassment complaints. And if I was a betting man, I think that's what the rodeo didn't want us to see. We've asked them to detail the millions of dollars in investments they make in the Caribbean. You know, look, this is a charity that goes around talking about all the great work they do for kids and scholarships. And you know what? They do raise money for scholarships. You know what else? The rodeo gives only 10% of their money. 10% of all the money they raise. If you look at their tax return, the rodeo is worth about $250 million with a B. So a few weeks ago, they went to the judge and said, Judge, this Dolce Fino guy is asking us for charity records, and we think we shouldn't have to give it to him because he's actually using this as some subterfuge to help this rape victim. God forbid my firm would be trying to help a rape victim get justice. But that's not what we were doing, and the judge said, sorry. The charity law in this state is very, very clear. You have to maintain your financial records if you're a charity that gets public money, and you have to show them to anybody who asks, whether it's anybody watching this press conference right now, or me, or a volunteer, or a rape victim, or anyone else, right? So, not satisfied with being told by the judge that hiding the records is not part of the deal, the rodeo has now taken legal action, and they've now asked the judge to let them sue me and the rape victim and drag us into court so they can convince us all why they shouldn't have to show you, all you folks out there, their charity records. Now, I'm a big boy. Rodeo wants to tee it up with me. I say, let's go. You're going to drag a rape victim into court because you don't want to show your charity records? Boy, that's really charitable. Really is. The rodeo should be ashamed. And as part of this legal action, not only do they want me to pay for their attorneys, and so look, by the way, their attorneys include Vincent and Elkins, which last time I checked, not a cheap firm. And so I think all the people who volunteer their time to work at the rodeo every year should be asking a very hard question to the rodeo executives today. Why are you spending charity money to hire fancy pants lawyers to keep your charity records secret instead of maybe giving some poor kid out there a little extra money for college, which is what we all thought this was about? I mean, I think this is a very fair, fundamental question. So they want me to pay for their high-priced lawyers, right? And they want the judge to look this rape victim in the face and say, you know what, rodeo, you're special. You're a sacred cow. You don't have to show people how you spend charity money. You know, it's been a long time since the rodeo was a cheap night's entertainment, right? It's not cheap to go there. And sure, we all love looking at cows and horses and pigs and all the animal stuff, and we really appreciate what they do for agriculture. But I think we should all start really admitting the truth. This is a concert business. It's a concert business disguised as a charity. Look, Apple is a for-profit company and they give lots of money to charity, right? The rodeo, in their petitions, you will see, also argue that somehow we're getting into their trade secrets, right? Their proprietary information. Well, who are they competing with? Are they competing with a for-profit concert company? So here's my message to the rodeo. First of all, I don't intimidate easy. Second of all, let's leave the rape victim out of this, shall we? I think she suffered enough. And I call on everyone out there, all the people who volunteer, and all the moms and dads that take their kids out there for a great lesson, right? What kind of lesson is the rodeo sending today? That some poor woman goes to a warm-up trail ride event 6 years ago now, gets brutally sexually assaulted. She seeks her justice, and that's for a jury to decide. And the rodeo is going to drag her into court, and the rodeo doesn't want to give up its charity records. So here's what I'm going to do. And one other thing they claim in their petition, they say that whatever I say today, they're going to use to try to convince the judge that I'm harassing them. Mean old Wayne harassing them. So what I've done, and we're going to put this on our website, dolcefino.com, okay? I've got a sample request form under Chapter 22 of the Business Organization Code, which is the way you ask for charity records. I'm going to put it out there, and it's going to have every single thing we've asked for from the rodeo. And I invite others. Let's get the kids involved. Let's have a good time. Let's get all the kids and all the parents out there involved. I want everyone to submit the identical request I've made. And I've even set up a form. All you got to do is put the name at the top and sign it, right? It's going to be on my website, dolcefino.com. And I'm doing that because this isn't about me, right? If it's really that they're going to drag a rape victim in court because they're mad at me, then let's get somebody else to ask for the same records, because that's not what it's about. What it's about is this is a charity that wants to make a bucket load of money using free labor, and then they want to hide their records. They spend millions of dollars in the Caribbean on investments, right? Well, aren't there any Houston investments we can make? They have lots of people on their board that have conflicts of interest that sell products to the rodeo. Let's see who they are. I think if we're going to have a nice public charity that seeks all this publicity, we ought to give them all the publicity we can. And so I am telling them, this is probably one of the most unimpressive things I've ever seen. And I don't know who gave them this advice at the rodeo. And remember, after the judge said they had to give me the records, they said, hey, we'll give you the records. Set it up. It was supposed to be on Thursday of last week. And then I got an email from them saying that they canceled the agreement, and they were going to file some court action against me. So I say, rodeo, if you want to spend your money, and I will be glad to show up in court. I'm not in direct contact with this rape victim, but her lawyers, Ben Roberts and Chad Pinkerton, got to call her this afternoon. Like she hasn't been through enough. And they get to tell her lawyers get to call her and tell her, she's moved out of state. They get to call her and tell her, hey, you get to come back to Houston because the rodeo wants to drag you in court to make you stop picking on them. Is that acceptable to anyone out here? Anybody have a question?
Yeah, I mean, if you're representing her and you think that they have paid money to, as a claim, what is she saying? Has she said she's gotten any money from the rodeo?
No, she hasn't. Look, so here's just quick historical. I'm not going to go too far down, but I'm going to give you the quick history. So a warm-up event, Los Vaqueros has a warm-up event in Liberty County, right? Brutal sexual assault, people were adjudicated, sent to prison, right? 2017, Chad Pinkerton, and you can ask Chad Pinkerton and Ben Roberts, why they sued, what they're hoping to get out of the lawsuit. That's not my job. So they sued on her behalf. And I think one of the legitimate questions is, when did the rodeo know, right? I mean, obviously, these are rodeo-sanctioned events, these warm-up events. And so one of the things that I think this rape case has raised is, when did the rodeo find out? And what action did they take? From what I can tell, the Los Vaqueros trail ride was allowed to be part of the trail ride, including one of the attackers, until this year. only after the lawsuit was filed does Los Vaqueros disappear from the trail ride. And it's funny that the rodeo didn't mention that, right? Rodeo didn't put out any press releases about Los Vaqueros banned from trail ride because of this horrible accident. She hasn't been paid a penny by the rodeo. Let the lawyers iron that out. I asked, among other things, for any financial records, because again, financial records are all you can get under the charity law, right? So you should be able to see if they're buying expensive furniture like they used to do years ago. You could see how much money they're giving to the kids. You could see any conflicts of interest. You could see how much the executives make. Look, I think it's great that so many people like to volunteer to work at the rodeo. And I think they have every right to know that the guy that runs the rodeo makes $600,000 a year too. And if they're fine with that, then that's their business, right? I personally wouldn't volunteer for a charity where the head guy was making that much money. But back to the sexual harassment thing, I asked them for records detailing any payments relative to sexual assault and sexual harassment. And my question, John, had nothing to do with this rape case. Years ago, when I was a reporter, I did an investigation of the rodeo, and I was focusing primarily on furniture.
I remember, yeah.
But I also had received some information from women who indicated to me that they had gone through some sort of sexual harassment as part of their getting into committees at the rodeo. Never did a story on it. Not making the accusation now. We all get tips in our business, right? Some of it's true, some of it's not. But I was always intrigued by it. And had I not been stopped by my station at the time, I would have gone down that trail, because that's what I do. And so one of the reasons I wanted to see that was because of, I have a long memory. I remembered that. And I said, well, while I'm asking for some stuff, I'm kind of curious about sexual harassment and sexual assaults. And the rodeo has gone through all kinds of machinations. They've told some news organizations they have no records. Okay, what? You have no records, you have no records. What's the big fight, right? Then they've suggested that maybe they don't have any records of any litigation settlements. Well, I think we all know that a lot of sexual harassment stuff is solved before litigation, right? I'm going to sue you, we settle the deal, I don't sue you. So I don't know, I just wish they'd get their story straight. But today, they've crossed the line. I don't care how sacred of a cow they think they are in this town, but when you start dragging in a rape victim, I mean, she's not my client, all right? I don't work for her. She's just a poor girl that was like brutally sexually assaulted and has to live with that the rest of her life. Really? Does she really need this kind of stress and aggravation where they're even wanting to like collect money from her?
So you were looking for any and all records?
Yeah.
Not just pretend.
No.
Sorry, you kind of went off.
No, I'm sorry. No, look, there is no settlement to that lawsuit. That lawsuit lives. As part of that lawsuit, my firm was asked to help the law firm, who we've worked for before in other matters, including other charity matters, in fact, to help them find other potential eyewitnesses to the original incident. Look, you could ask Mr. Pinkerton and Mr. Roberts. They'll be the first to tell you.
Right,
sometimes I go a little crazy.
Just to boil this down to the nut,
Yeah.
you were looking for any and all records of settlements, sexual harassment claims, et cetera.
Security,
Right.
because there's no crime at the rodeo.
Right.
I've asked for TABC
So
records
you were
now.
casting a wide net, and what they threw in your net was this rape victim.
What they've done now is they went to the judge and said, Judge, they're trying to get around discovery in a court case. They're using this Dolce Fino guy and these charity requests, but they're really just prosecuting their civil lawsuit, and they're using me to try to get the stuff the other way. That's what they claimed. And the judge said, well, sorry, even if that's true, the law is clear. You're a charity. You have to surrender your financial records for inspections. If not, it is a crime. And so I have already filed a criminal complaint with the district attorney, Ms. Ogg, and I'll hold my breath to see what happens with that. And I plan next week to call the IRS. I'm going to ask the IRS, and I'll file the formal complaint as necessary. I think it's time we take a real hard look at this. If we're going to play the we're a charity and we get tax breaks, but we don't have to show you the records game, then I think the federal government needs to take a real hard look at the rodeo. But I'm calling on them today, take the rape victim out of this. I mean, have you no shame? You're going to go after a rape victim? to get her in court and make her pay you a bunch of money for your lawyers because you don't want to give up some charity records? And I think everyone should be calling the rodeo office and say, cut it out.
Wayne, do you believe the rodeo, it's in their best interest, or what do you think is more important to them? Keeping their clean name, they're a big name in this town, obviously, it's a big city. Are they more interested in keeping their name clean, or more about keeping those records to themselves?
Look, I think they're interested in having, look, when I see a charity that has $250 million worth of stuff and only gives 10% of their money to the kids and talks about how much money they give to the kids, I've always thought that was ridiculous. I've always thought that a charity should give as much as they possibly can to charity. And look, I don't know what they're hiding, but in my biz, when you fight this hard, it must be something pretty good. And I just think they've done exactly, look, if I was advising the rodeo, I would say, don't give Dolce Fino the oxygen to be able to say you're hiding something. Just give up the records, right? When someone doesn't want to give you something that you know the law requires them to do, what's the obvious thing you say? What are you hiding? So I just say to the rodeo, wouldn't it be better just giving it up? What's so secretive in there that giving it up will damage you more than dragging a rape victim into court? And that's why I'm having this news conference, guys. Quite honestly, this is, and you could put this in the petition, rodeo. This is like to embarrass them because they deserve to be embarrassed today for what they've done. Plain and simple. And I look forward to going to court with these guys. I really do. Questions? Anybody?
What next? What next in the battle?
Well, they're going to have to go to the judge because they're technically asking the judge for permission to drag the rape victim into court. And it's not for me to tell the judge what to do. I think the judge has already made it clear. They got to show us the records. So, look, do I expect the rodeo to fight? Sure. Do I hope that the folk out there will help me convince them that they're not the sacred cow they think they are? Absolutely, which is why I'm doing this. And every time the rodeo does this, I've already told them, I've asked for a lot of other records now. Because now you got to say, if you're hiding, in our biz, guys, if you're hiding one thing, chances are you're hiding two things. And so I'm sending them over a request today for the contracts with the entertainers who play for these charity concerts that we all spend a lot of money on. Let's see how much they charge, right? And they're going to argue that it's somehow going to affect their competition. Well, if your competition are for-profit companies, maybe you should just be a for-profit company. So anyway, they have done more today to illustrate this rape case than I could have ever done for them. And I think Brienne, she's been on TV before. I think you guys have covered press conference when the lawsuit was filed. So you have video of her, you have video of Mr. Pinkerton. I did notify the law firm that I was having this press conference, didn't ask their permission. They speak for themselves. This is my press conference because I think what they've done today is disgusting. Okay? Thanks, guys.